Michael Saylor has had enough and is escalating things in a public letter to MSCI, which wants to ban MicroStrategy and other treasury companies that hold too much Bitcoin from the index. He says the whole thing is an attack on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is being discriminated against. It's about causing billions in damages to companies, creating market chaos, treating Bitcoin like a banned commodity, while gold, oil, and real estate aren't affected. The whole thing is politically motivated and anti-BSS. Wow, guys, we're going to check this all out. Also, a massive signal has just gone off that couldn't be more bearish for Bitcoin and for strategy. There's really a lot at stake here. We're talking about billions in outflows here. But we also have new Bitcoin purchases by treasury companies, and we have the first Bitcoin bond that's now being launched in Germany. Before we get into it, it would make me really happy if you could take a second and hit the like button below. For higher Bitcoin prices, for new all-time highs. As a thank you, I'll also show you what's about to happen. Money printer GoPro. If you're watching this video right now, it's possible that the Fed meeting is currently taking place with Jerome Powell and the US Central Bank. I'll give you an update on that tomorrow. However, it could also be that when you watch this video, the price reacts with some volatility. So don't be surprised when you watch the video that the price might either go down or up. Things can get really volatile. We don't know. These Fed meetings are always a bit of a mystery box. Now we're seeing more Bitcoin purchases here. Here, Eric Trump's American Bitcoin just bought 416 Bitcoin. We're also seeing that purchases from all the Bitcoin treasury companies and mining companies and so on are currently pulling back a bit. Of course. Here, another 500 million raised. Vivek Ramaswamy's drive to buy more Bitcoin. And then we have a very exciting, ultra-bullish Bitcoin signal here, an abandoned baby breakout-based strategy. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a trader, but I took a look at it, and it really does seem to be very bullish. MicroStrategy has just formed one of the rarest bullish reversal patterns in technical analyses, an abandoned baby breakout. This occurs when, after a sharp drop, a small, isolated candle appears, followed by a sharp move up that completely isolates and leaves that candle behind. So with Abgrund, they probably mean breakout. It's a bit of a weird translation. MicroStrategy hit its bottom due to intense fear, forming the so-called abandoned baby pattern between November 29th and December 3rd. It formed the so-called abandoned baby formation and confirmed the breakout when the price moved back above the previous range. The last time MicroStrategy showed such a clear pattern was before a major multi-month uptrend. If Bitcoin continues to recover from its price drops, this could be the moment when MicroStrategy has finally found its local bottom. This is a case you should take a close look at. So, as I said, I'm not a trader and I wouldn't put too much stock in such signals, but of course it's still interesting to take a look at them from time to time, which is also what technical analysis says. What's interesting is that Saylor, he's the only one who's made any big purchases here recently. This Monday, for example, he bought those 10,000 Bitcoins. It's also interesting to see what analysts are writing about this and how they're interpreting it. Here, for example, is Things, who said there's a reason why Saylor bought about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in a single week. He knows that the banks and sovereign wealth funds are going to come. He knows that Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million. Because in this post, it's also claimed that Saylor has access to asymmetric information. Saylor knows what's coming our way. Most people don't know what's coming. And that's why, of course, he's making sure to buy as much Bitcoin as possible now, because he knows very well that there might not be so many good entry points in the coming years. And now let's take a look at this massive shock letter here from Michael Saylor. You can see it here as well. After Strife, Strategy has now also written an open letter to the index publisher MSCI, in which the company argues against removing Bitcoin treasury companies from stock indices. So this would be a de facto ban here for Strategy, for companies that are heavily invested in Bitcoin. That means it's allowed to have some Bitcoin, but it's not allowed to have too much Bitcoin. The magic threshold here is over 50% of the balance sheet. So if you simply run your main business more or less with Bitcoin, that's basically the big accusation. We have to keep in mind, Strategy also gets a lot of passive flows through these indices. By now, it's pretty standard to have large indices. And through these indices, massive amounts of money flow in as well. Treasury companies, but of course also other companies that are included in these indices. MSCI is one of the most relevant indices here. And there have also been high estimates. If Strategy is excluded here, about 8 billion in outflows could occur. But Saylor immediately said, no, that's too much. These 8 billion, that number was simply pulled out of thin air by JP Morgan. Saylor estimates more like 2 billion here, but 2 billion is still a significant amount. Although I actually don't think so. It's not the number that's important, but rather the signal that matters. Many people also say, for example, that the strategy sell-off was definitely due to the fact that over the past few months, it was increasingly priced in that strategy would no longer be included in the MSCI. I think the decision should be made on the 15th of January or something like that. Saylor also says, hey guys, we need your support. Share this, because what is this all about? It's an attack on Bitcoin, it's an attack on strategy. And now let's take a look at the specific accusations being made against strategy. Saylor explicitly says here that Bitcoin companies are being specifically discriminated against. So these companies are being discriminated against because it's simply said, okay, Bitcoin is bad, you're not allowed to have it, but real estate, gold, and so on, other commodities, those are allowed. Political value judgments instead of introducing neutral index rules. So basically, it's political again here. It's a politically motivated decision that harms US national interests because the government is currently building up a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That means, he says, it's directed against the US government, which is easing regulations, wants to promote Bitcoin, is pushing through the Genius Act, wants to pass the market structure bill, and even wants to buy Bitcoin itself. Some even believe that strategy could eventually become the Bitcoin proxy for the US, which the US might take over at some point. And that's why Michael Saylor says that this initiative by MSCI basically goes against the interests of the United States. It'll be interesting, and many have said this won't go through, because we also have Donald Trump's company, or rather, Eric Trump's, his son's company, ABTC, American Bitcoin. And this would also affect that company because they're also massively accumulating Bitcoin. They just recently accumulated another 400-something Bitcoins. And a lot of people have said that Donald Trump will somehow veto this or that Donald Trump will get involved because, let's be honest, the Trump family won't. Let their business model be ruined by some index providers. I don't know if that argument is really relevant, but it's definitely interesting. So Taylor's also saying, yes, innovation is being stifled, and companies like MicroStrategy are being harmed by billions. The estimate here is $2.8 billion in outflows, according to the paper. Market chaos would be created because treasury companies would be moving in and out daily due to the Bitcoin price. So that means basically if the Bitcoin price drops or rises more sharply, or whatever, just right here, inclusions, exclusions, and that would create total market chaos. But it's not just that which would cause market chaos. There's also the loss of trust in these treasury companies, although the loss of trust isn't triggered internally, but rather externally, by some regulations that get changed here or by certain rules. Here, Bitcoin is being treated like a banned commodity, instead of being handled neutrally like gold, oil, or real estate. So here, the core scandal is what MSCI is planning, a rule that almost exclusively targets Bitcoin companies. And Saylor openly calls this discriminatory, politically motivated, and hostile to business. And of course, this is almost equivalent to a Bitcoin ban. That means kind of like, yeah, you can have 2 or 3 Bitcoins, but as soon as it's 10,000 or more, then it becomes critical. And now let's take a look at the first Bitcoin bond in Germany. I'm the head of Bitcoin strategy at Nikiki SE and responsible there for Bitcoin education. Also, to explain what's going on here, who something like this might be interesting for, who it might not be interesting for, what the opportunities and risks are, and so on. Nikiki CE is opening the subscription period today for the first Bitcoin bond in the German-speaking region. This marks the beginning of the first regulated capital raising in German history, where a German Bitcoin treasury company is allowed to raise fresh capital and invest it in Bitcoin. This step is historically unprecedented and opens up an entirely new field for the German capital market. You can see it very, very clearly here as well. There are about $100 trillion in institutional capital worldwide, and 97% of that is mandated to invest in Bitcoin through a security or a credit instrument. They are not allowed to hold Bitcoin directly. We are tapping into pools of capital here that previously had no access to Bitcoin at all. And we are solving exactly this problem for institutional investors, because on the one hand, we have limited downside risk through structured protection mechanisms, stable returns through regular interest payments, and indirect Bitcoin exposure with limited Bitcoin upside. The institutional investor receives 9.875% interest per year, which allows them to outperform any German sovereign fund or US government bonds. We can use this capital to buy more Bitcoin, increase the Bitcoin per share for Nikiki shareholders so that we generate a Bitcoin yield and Nikiki shareholders receive more and more Bitcoin over time. Hoshare. We believe in Bitcoin for the long term and are also convinced that every company and every balance sheet will sooner or later hold Bitcoin on its books. Just like today, every company has a website. We want to contribute to this, also through education, to make the German capital market ready for Bitcoin. A lot of people used to laugh at Bitcoin, but now it's made it to the big leagues. MicroStrategy led the way, MetaPlanet followed, and now the big banks are coming. A lot of people said something like this wouldn't be possible in Germany, but as you can see, you actually can run a Bitcoin treasury strategy here. Germany sold all its Bitcoin, so now a few treasury companies here need to see if maybe they can buy some Bitcoin back. So far, there aren't really any relevant treasury companies in Germany, at least not yet. So I'm really curious to see where this journey will lead. Michael Saylor actually said in an interview some time ago that there's room in Germany for a Bitcoin treasury company worth up to $1 trillion US. And that's just a single treasury company. Of course, it's possible there could be more. Naturally, not every company will take such a pure play approach as Strategy or MetaPlanet, and so on, where the sole purpose is to raise capital in order to buy Bitcoin. Some will just have a different business model, use Bitcoin as a savings tool within their company, and so on. Yeah, let me know down below how you see the whole story with MicroStrategy. Do you see it as a threat to Bitcoin, or do you say, nah, I couldn't care less? If you're looking for something really awesome, then I'd recommend you check out TREZOR right now. They've got a holiday campaign running from December 10th to January 5th. And here you get 30% off TS3, 30% off TS5%. With TS6, you get a free privacy screen included. There are also bundles with 25% off, and in some cases, 10% off. The promo code is always Holiday25. Definitely go check it out. It's worth it. And yeah, I'll put the link for you down below. Only valid with the link below. See you guys. Catch you later. Peace out.